And the first presenter is Chris Grundeman. Chris, are you close by? And here he is. And he's going to talk about operators and the IETF and how it's going to be very important to get more engagement there between the two organizations and constituencies. And hopefully we'll get the slides.
Thanks, yeah. It's good to see so many people here in the morning. I hear there was a Katy Perry concert associated with some sporting event yesterday that maybe some folks are hungover from, so glad to see as many folks here as there are. And yeah, as Tony said, I'm going to talk about an effort we're doing at the Internet Society. We kind of coined it Operators in the IETF for obvious reasons. It's really kind of centered around a survey we did last year, asking questions to operators about their participation in the IETF. And first of all, I always step back a minute here because I think when I say operators, a lot of people hear ISP, and that's not exactly what I mean. When I say network operator, in this context at least, I'm talking about everybody who runs a network. So whether it's an enterprise network, a campus network, a network in a data center, whatever it might be, you're included here as an operator. The IETF, hopefully most of you have at least heard of it. The goal of the IETF is to make the internet work better. Very similar goal to NANOG. The IETF does it through actually engineering the standards and protocols that we run on the internet. So the dream, right, between these two is that the IETF would create standard protocols with operator input, and they would work great every time, right? I mean, the IETF obviously is extremely successful. None of us would be here if it wasn't. We've built these protocols that the internet runs on. It's fairly well working, but I think it could be better, right? And the reason is there's a perception, at least, that many operators aren't engaged enough, that the amount of operators and operational input into the IETF process isn't high enough, right? That the real world should inform a little bit more of what's going on there. So we have a plan at the Internet Society to kind of look at this. Phase one was a survey last year. We had about 368 respondents to the survey from all over the world, operators. It closed on July 1st of last year, and then we started digging in, and that was phase two of kind of synthesizing and starting to discuss the survey results. I put about 200 and some odd thousand miles on my frequent flyer card last year, flying around operator groups all over the world talking about this, and we've kind of assimilated all that information into an internet draft, which is linked here. And now we really want to kind of continue that conversation and start looking at actually, where are the real problems and find some solutions for those. So looking really quickly at the results of the survey, the respondents were overwhelmingly technical, and the vast majority were operators, which is good. That's what we were looking for. The mix was about 92% said they were engineers, 80% architects, only about 38% said they were developers, and about half said they were managers as far as job role. Within that, the IETF participants, so about exactly half said they didn't participate at all in the IETF. About a third said that they participated on mailing lists, and 18% said they actually participated both in mailing lists and at the IETF meetings. And so that was pretty much the mix we were expecting and hoping for. Obviously, this is looking at the problem of why operators don't participate in the IETF. We really wanted to hear from folks who don't participate in the IETF, but getting some context from those who do, I think, is helpful. What this basically says here is, among those who don't participate in the IETF at all, the vast majority, right, 96%, have heard of the IETF. Most of them know what it does, right? It looks like 92% said that they understand what it does, and even 2/3 said that they think it's relevant to their job, right? The work that the IETF is doing is relevant to their job. So why don't they participate, right? This is a survey of folks who didn't participate at all, and I think that some of these other numbers are clues here. Over half of this group reported that they don't know how to participate, and almost half said they don't feel welcome. It's kind of a similar mix on mailing lists. What pops out here is a lot of folks, everybody says they want to participate, they understand that it's relevant, but they're not participating. Why? But here it looks like time and awareness are big issues. A huge chunk said that they don't really understand how to participate in the mailing list and what exactly goes on mailing lists, and that they don't have the time to follow the lists. Meetings, the big thing that came up with meetings was money, travel budget, right? Getting to meetings all over the world is fairly difficult. especially if it's, just something that you're doing as an operator, right? We all have actual daytime jobs and you're trying to run a network. And so even just the time of going to a meeting is hard, right? Coming to NANOG is something that, taxes resources, right? If you're not on call and not available to your company. And I think that the general awareness question really was very telling, right? We have really about half folks said they're not aware that the mailing lists are where a lot of the work happens. About half the folks said that they thought they had to actually show up to meetings to participate. Only half were available that remote participation is available. And so then the other half, again, thought they had to show up at meetings. So there's obviously a knowledge gap here, I think. And when we dig into synthesizing these results, we start to see that come out. I think it's fairly clear that there's really kind of 4 areas of issues here that are at play. Time, the ability to actually have time to participate in mailing lists, show up at meetings, and really engage is a barrier to entry. Culture is another one. The folks who say they don't feel welcome. Obviously, I think that's a culture issue. There's definitely different communities here at play. Money came up over and over again as far as why not coming to the meetings, which I think is actually kind of a little bit of a red herring because you don't have to participate in the meetings. I mean, you don't have to be at a meeting to participate. There's folks who have written RFCs and had to go through the entire process without ever showing up at a meeting. It's not very common, but it's definitely possible. So that one may be less of an issue and more to the last point, an awareness thing, right? Really an awareness of what is the IETF working on? Why is it relevant to me? Why should I participate? And then how? How do I actually come in and participate? So looking at the first challenge, time. This is a quote from a paper that Randy Bush published. The IETF has grown so large and enamored of complexity and featureitis that it is a full-time job to participate. And obviously, if you're running a network, you don't have time to spend all of your time at the IETF. Also, I want to note the date on this. This is 2005. This is not something that's a new problem. This is not something that no one's been aware of. It's an ongoing thing. And so, hopefully we can actually start looking at it and really addressing it. 72% of the participants said that they don't participate in IETF mailing lists because they don't have the time. And 64% said they don't come to meetings because they don't have time. Culture is the next issue. One of the quotes is the IETF is not really focused towards operations, and historically, operator input has not been well received. So 44% of the respondents here said they don't participate in the IETF because they don't feel their operator input is welcome, right? Now, I want to turn that around also. There was another quote. I perceive it to be full of pompous, self-serving, out of touch with reality technology actors. So there may be some cultural perceptions both ways, right? We can't throw stones. So I think there may be, the IETF could possibly be more welcoming, but operators may need to be more welcoming as well in reverse. Money again came up really highly. 82% said that the reason they don't go to meetings is because they can't afford it. And I think awareness, again, I think is really one of the big key factors here. 58% of those who don't participate in the IETF at all said that they don't know how to. And the numbers are similar for meetings and for mailing lists, right? You can see the numbers there. Folks who hadn't even heard of mailing lists, folks who don't know what happens on them, and folks who don't know how to join them, as well as meetings. What's going on in a meeting? How do I participate? So that kind of brings us to the discussion point. In addition to the multiple choice answers, the questions we did on the survey, we also asked about some free-form text questions. And I think those really start driving into possible solutions that have come out of this. And at least from the survey results and what I've heard talking to people around the world, I think there's really 3 areas where we can find solutions here. Communication, outreach, and inclusion, right? So the other thing is I think there's 3 places where those solutions can happen, right? The IETF itself obviously could potentially make changes and make it easier to participate, but operators and operator groups like this one, like NANOG, could potentially do things that may make it easier for operators to understand what's going on at the IETF and to participate. And then perhaps the Internet Society, my employer, may be able to step in and help if needed. So looking at communication, at least in the survey results, 2 big things in communication came out were mailing list digests and alternative communication mediums. And what do I mean? Here's some of the quotes. Quarterly summaries for those that are not able to attend. Provide a curating service that takes key developments in a working group and shares them from time to time. Make it dead simple for folks to see the specific topics being discussed and worked on. So I think a lot of this comes into play of the time issues and the awareness issues of how do I actually participate and follow a mailing list that's really, really noisy when I have to run a network, right? And so here's a potential area. I present some of these solutions kind of without judgment. I'm offering them up as a beginning of the discussion, right? Some of these may be good ideas, some of these may be horrible ideas, some may be great. A twist on that, this one, I really like this idea, highlight specifically which group's efforts are looking for operator input. Have some kind of way to signal to operators, hey, this draft actually needs operators to look at it, or this idea needs some vetting from operators. Perhaps a really good idea, not sure. And then aside from just digesting the mailing list, right, maybe there's other ways to communicate. Maybe there's other ways for the IETF to talk to participants. A simple feedback system on drafts and discussions, looking at questions to ask operators. Surveys like this, and then meaning you could send out surveys to the operators and say, hey, ask questions that are relevant to the discussion in that particular technology development. Somebody suggested podcasts, right? Other ways to get the information out. Interestingly, one person on the survey said that RSS feeds may be a really good way for busy people to keep track of that. The IETF actually already publishes RSS feeds of recent RFCs, recent internet drafts, documents in last call, and several other things. There's even some mailing list RSS feeds you can subscribe to. So again, coming back to the awareness issue, that maybe a lot of this is just being engaged and being aware of what's already going on. Which comes to outreach. And within outreach, I think there's, again, two areas that we could look at here. Direct outreach to operator communities, and then generating publicity was another idea that popped up. So direct outreach, demystifying participation in the IETF, more liaisons, smaller events, co-located sessions with network operator meetings, posting on mailing lists worldwide, getting the information out there to more folks, make it easier for folks to understand what's going on at the IETF and why and how to participate. In that vein, one of the ideas that came up was an IETF help desk. We're actually trying this out for the first time ever here in the hallway there. There's a desk with a IETF help desk logo on the front of it. If you want to understand better about what the IETF's working on, how to get involved in the IETF, what's the difference between an internet draft and an RFC, any of these things, right? From the most basic questions to fairly advanced ones, we'll try to find answers for you or have the answer already. So please come to the help desk and ask your questions, and including letting us know if this is a horrible idea. Another idea that popped up in the kind of outreach vein is publicity, ensuring that meaningful RFCs and other publications get more press, strategic plan of publicity, a list of reasons why operator participation is needed and what the payoff is. So kind of, and then another idea of kind of a hot RFC and really get, the media involved. Again, just a potential idea for making folks aware of what the IETF is and does. Inclusion then is the final one, making the operators feel more welcome. But how, right? Maybe making participation at meetings easier, maybe making the process more operator friendly, maybe requiring operational input. That was one idea that came up. And then multilingualism is another thing that came up. Again, this was a global survey. Publishing agendas earlier, grouping operationally relevant content together in the meeting, making it easier to come into an IETF meeting and get in and out. So there's quite a few ideas here making participation at meetings easier. And again, I think that maybe these are kind of at the tail end of my priority list, in my head at least, because again, you don't necessarily have to be at the meeting to participate. So maybe making their own participation better and making people aware of that is more important. The process itself could potentially be more operator friendly. Again, when there's some folks that are dealing with this as kind of their course of day, right? When you're actually developing code, developing hardware, and this is what you do day in and day out, you can spend a lot of time on it. When you're an operator running a network, that process may need to be a little bit different. Maybe there needs to be a little bit different of a vein for operators to come in. Operator working groups, there's operator councils, accepted operator requests may be valid even if they're not in agreement with existing opinions. These kind of things also play back to the culture issues and the inclusion. One of the ideas that came out was to require operational input. A few folks said this, require standards to get buy-in by a variety of operators, or define a specific class of documents that require the participation of at least 2 operators. Another one, the comment in there was talking about the BCOP, the best current operational practices, which obviously is something that's going on here at NANOG, and I think probably plays into a talk we'll hear from Kathy later today about how that might tie the operator group to the IETF in a document stream in a repository there, potentially. So, we've heard some problems, we've heard some solutions, potentially. What do we want to do next? First, I kind of laid this out as kind of a matrix of the solutions we saw come up and the problems we saw, right? So time, culture, money, and awareness being the big problem areas, communication, outreach, and inclusion kind of being solutions to those. The money one doesn't get solved very easily, but again, I think that not coming to meetings is an option. And so if we build up the communication in a way that lowers the time barrier, so that it's easier to participate on an operator's schedule, do more outreach so that there's more awareness of the IETF, and then be inclusive, right, on both sides again. right? Operators need to come to the IETF with open eyes, and the IETF needs to welcome them with open arms. So the real next steps here are host discussions, gather feedback. That's what I'm doing here. I'd love to hear from you guys at the mics right now. If there's anything in here that's complete craziness or really good ideas, if you have your own ideas, and then also onwards beyond this, right? There's email addresses I'll have up later and other ways to get involved where you can share that information if you don't have it right now. Or I'll be here the next couple of days. You can find me in the hallway and let me know. We're going to take all that information and we're going to update the internet draft. We want to synthesize this into future versions and really have a good problem statement and solution set in the draft as kind of a documentation of all that went on here. And then potentially lobby for specific solutions, right? If there's things here that are good ideas, let's stand up and say that they're good ideas and get them done. This is where you come in. I need you to talk to me. I need you to read the internet draft and let me know what you think. The email address is there, deploy360@isoc.org. We're all over social media. There's a contact page there for my team. And then obviously anyone at the IETF is probably open ears to this as well. So with that, it's an internet draft. It could someday become an RFC. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions now or gather feedback, please. It's the hand.
Where's your PA guy? I used to go to a lot of IETFs, and then they started distributing them all over the world, and it became very difficult to attend in different countries, these things. At the same time, it really is important to get inculcated into their culture and know the people and where they're coming from and hear the different perspectives. Same is here. A lot of those hallway conversations are quite valuable. So I'm not sure this remote participation thing is really the best way to go forward. I do think the things you're doing with the best current operating practices among a group of network operators in this room is very convenient. We can get together and have discussions and create documents. So that seems to be a much better approach, in my opinion, to getting that information into the IETF, is if we can, as a collective, provide that information. The other thought is, since the people who go to the IETF tend to be the vendors, why do we as customers need to go to their forum? Why don't they come to our forum and hear what we have to say?
Excellent points.
Hi, I'm Kathy Aronson. I just have one of these headlines for you guys, autonomic networks. There's a big push in the IETF for autonomic networks. They manage themselves, they reconfigure themselves. We don't really need these network operators. So I just thought maybe I would egg you on to maybe look that up, and so that there's the three of us that are there aren't the only voices when they say, oh no, we don't need you network operators because we're making autonomic networks, and they'll just do all that stuff for you. Anyway, just a thought.
Absolutely, that's a good one to, if you're not engaged now, that's probably a good one to start with.
Skynet is coming.
Randy Bush, IJ. I have to congratulate this room on the largest collection of misinformation about the IETF I've heard in a long while. And I go to the IETF, have for a couple of years, have serious problems with it, etc. But going to the IETF as a collective doesn't work. IETF are individual experts, fertig. So saying we're going to put together a NANOG position is bullshit.
I don't think anyone said that, though.
They did.
Okay.
The speaker before Kathy. Secondly, no one is going around the IETF and saying we don't need operators, etc. Right? Thirdly, there are a fair number of operators in the IETF. Who here goes to the IETF aside from me? Yeah? Okay. So let's get real here.
If this isn't a problem, I'd love to hear that from others as well, because then it makes my life a lot easier. I don't have to do this anymore. Any other comments or questions or feedback? Like I said, please email us, let us know. Really, this is all about engagement in a conversation, right? I just want to hear what's going on and really facilitate any changes that can be made or that could be made. Thanks.